everybody. Welcome to the Title Abstract. This is the podcast about the people, tools, and trends shaping the future of title. We're back here. I'm the host, Justin Williams, with Razzi. Do everything sales here. Rob Zwink, also from Razzi. He's our CTO and co-founder. And then John Dyer is doing everything title up in Cleveland, Ohio, and the incoming president of the OLTA Association. So kudos.
Thank
John.
you.
El Presidente, I think we'll call you.
Yeah. Hey.
And then joining us today, our esteemed guest, Mike Simon with Agent Brief. Mike, you want to give yourself just a quick intro here for the people?
Sure. Esteemed. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Mike Simon. I'm the founder and CEO of Agent Brief. Agent Brief is a mobile data app specifically designed for title reps. We've been in business about 2 years. My background spent most of my career in residential real estate for the last 30 years with stops at Coldwell Banker, Realogy, Century 21, Keller Williams, and others, most recently List Reports. So it's a new venture for me, and excited to be part of your little gathering here today.
Well, we hope to make it not so little by the end of this year, but the way we kind of structure these episodes, we'll cover three things, each broken out into different segments. The first thing we're going to talk about here today is Proppy. They're a group, I think they call themselves a crypto. They're in that space. They're raising $100 million to acquire title companies and apply blockchain and AI to create a behemoth in the industry. So I think what's important to realize is that they haven't raised the money just yet. But I think they're going to Silicon Valley with their hands out saying, hey, we've got this bright idea, paper-based transaction. We're going to change all of that. Rob, maybe if you want to tee this one up, because I know you've had your experience in blockchain and title, and maybe give yourself a little intro on that topic and set the table here.
Yeah, happy to. So, as mentioned in the intro, Rob Zwink, CTO and co-founder at Razzi. I was the CTO and co-founder of a blockchain startup called SafeChain, and I joined SafeChain after a 13-year career at JP Morgan. I am generally very optimistic about tech. So, seeing the Proppy headline, though, there's certainly things we can talk about as it relates to it. Kudos to them for keeping the flame alive as it relates to the application of modern technology within various industries. So one of the interesting things SafeChain achieved back in 2017, 2018 was essentially an Ethereum-backed real estate transaction with the partnership of the Franklin County Auditor in Ohio. That's where Columbus, Ohio is. So, we set out to perform a blockchain-backed transaction with the participation of government, which helped our own internal meetings as it related to like no smoke and mirrors. We wanted to do this above board. And so with that said, I guess from the perspective of, having seen the article, there's I think something worth mentioning in a podcast as it relates to growth buyout strategy. Razzi's based at a tech startup venture studio in Columbus, so we get to see a number of startups come and go. And one of the themes in 2025 is our startups that use growth buyout strategy in order to set funding rounds. So by that, what I mean is in, say, Central Ohio, a seed stage company could raise $500,000 to get to their first customer. Another alternative to that is to raise $3 million to buy your first customer and effectively digitize them and then resell them at a significantly higher multiplier. And there is a theme, like legitimately 2025, where folks with lots of money, private equity and VCs, are looking for venture backable companies with AI-related toolkits that can come in, buy largely paper-based companies, maybe the laggards of their industry, at 1.2x multipliers, digitize them, and sell them for 6-7%, 7x multipliers. So just as a bit of context, when I read that article, like it kind of fit into a larger puzzle piece of sorts, in that Propy sees it, I would suggest an opportunity to capitalize on that theme and take their technology to folks with deep pockets, saying, hey, we can run a title office more efficiently using technology, and we'll find the ones that are paper based and do that.
It's a good summary. And so the journey that they're on, you've kind of taken part of that, of less of buying an existing company as your first customer, but I think SafeChain made its short existence in a blockchain for title that ultimately, I think, Rob, talking to you, you decided that, and maybe the investors decided that you would need probably 30 million instead of 6 million to make that truly happen. And that was a learning that you've got to get 3,000 counties across the country to all buy into making a token, essentially transact a purchase of a home, right? So I don't know if you want to expound on that just a little bit more about what's actually going on there and the challenges they might see ahead.
Yeah, I would suggest I have a renewed appreciation for the complexity of title. I say renewed. It's like every day I'm aware of how hard it is. And it's not like a day passes and I'm like, oh, actually, I think I figured it out. It's actually it's really simple when you think about it. It's not, that moment's never happened. I think one of the challenges with title is it's different than owning a car. If somebody's breaking into my car, I'll like call the police. If they're coming in my window, it's like, even the thought of it, if you hear that, it's like, it's a different visceral reaction. It's like, your home. And I think a lot of our institutions we've created, protect our homes. And sometimes it's that degree of inefficiency. Like I would suggest like the title industry, while it has from an outsider perspective, lots of inefficiency, some of it's there because we'll tolerate it in order to like protect its like federated nature. There are 3,000 counties. I mean, in theory, you could replace, I don't know, be curious to hear, John, if you would agree with this, or Mike, but like MERS is a federal recorder. Like in theory, you could potentially replace county recorder offices with it. I just don't see it happening. Like I don't think we would want federated, or like we wouldn't want to replace like state rights, county rights, even with its inefficiency, with something so centralized. Like if we did, it would be Torrens title. We might as well like have a Duke. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, I mean, if you did that, then in theory, if I had a lien against me in Cleveland, Ohio, it would attach to a property I was buying in Nevada, which is not the law. And so you're talking about redicing the whole nature of states' rights and the whole enchilada. You're going into a federalized system, which is not something that's close to ever going to happen in my opinion. When I look at this at Proppy, they're trying to raise the money. I mean, it's somewhat offensive, frankly, as a title agent that, does title work every day. And it's what I've done for 25 years, for some really smart tech people to say, oh, this is an industry that's backwards and we're going to buy up these guys and flip them. And they're so dumb and it's so simple, all the things that you can do. That's awesome. Go for it. Mm-hmm. Like, go for it. And let's see what happens. Now, do we need help with technology? Yes. Do title agents need to be focused on modernization? Yes, they do. Can these folks teach us a lot? Yes, they can. I mean, that's why Rob and I are friends, because he can break down certain things. And one of the goals of the podcast is to get different, is to, spread the word of these things that are coming that we all need to be aware of, that are all pretty obvious to us, including AI, which we'll talk about. But so I'm sure there's many things that we can learn, that I can learn as an agent from the strategies Proppy will employ with these agencies. But, we're not just having a piece of technology. We have to interact with individuals all around the country, or all around the country and all around the city and all around the state where we operate, who we have to get information from. And sometimes they give it to us, and sometimes they don't. And sometimes they don't answer their phone, and sometimes they're on vacation, and sometimes their realtors didn't tell them that they're going to need to provide their trust agreement. And sometimes they think that they can close a transaction while they're in France, or that, any number of things. And so I wish it were easier, and I wish there was some magic piece of technology that we could buy that would, disintermediate some employees and let them focus on customer service instead of grunt work that we all have to do, or that we could get a title exam like this. I mean, one of the hardest things for us is getting a title exam in various counties, and we can't get a good title exam for love or money. Why? Because it's hard to do, and the people that do them are getting older. And there isn't an online option. I'm trying to get documents from Geauga County right now. I have to go to the county, possibly, because nothing is online, and there's like 2 examiners there, and they're not going to be there today or tomorrow. So what am I supposed to do? I have to make it happen. So if Proppy has a solution for that, they could give me a call on my cell. I'll take their call. I mean, it's hard. Separately, the strategy of rolling up, medium-sized title agencies is a good idea, because you've got, 300 title agents in northeastern Ohio or whatever it is in the upper part of the state. We all have payroll. We all have bookkeeping. We all have all these things. If you aggregate those, you're going to get a lot of savings. I mean, I think their idea of putting $100 million into it to get a $10 or a $1 billion valuation, and I don't, Rob, I'm not familiar with the metrics you guys are talking about in seed funding. That's too low. I mean, they should be aiming way higher than that. That's what I think.
Agree.
You think the value would be more if they had $100 million?
Well, it depends on who they buy, and what to them is mid-size. I mean, there's a lot of challenges for agents right now. I mean, we're cyber companies as much as we're title agents. We're dealing with all these different fraud issues. We're dealing with we're on the cusp of a massive change in the technology that's available to us, and that we're all going to have to train on. So, I mean, if you have the capacity and the money to buy agents and consolidate back office and have a national platform, that makes perfect sense. The underwriters are perfectly poised to do this, because they have all the agents. They roughly get about half of their revenue from agents and half from direct operations. So, generally across the board, they have the money. They're already, they're well capitalized. They're public. They have the ability to borrow if they don't have the cash. They could be buying up these people and have a brand across the country of First American and, or whatever. And they're just not doing it, because almost to an entity, when an underwriter buys a local agent, the agent slowly goes downhill until there's nothing left. That's just what happens. I can't tell you why, but it's what happens. Probably because it's bureaucratized to the point of no return. And I mean, it sounds simple in a nutshell, and it's a great press release. I mean, we'll see what happens.
So if a slick back dude from Silicon Valley in his Patagonia vest came knocking on Nova Title Agency, and knowing you probably have a 3-year earnout clause to stick through the pain of trying to figure out blockchain in Cleveland, Ohio, what would you say, John?
I'd put on my Stio embroidered Nova Title bro vest, walk him to the door, buy him a cup of coffee on the corner, and send him down the street.
There we go. That's, I think that's a key takeaway. He's not open for business, Proppy. And Mike, you
just playing hard to get.
There you go. Get that valuation up. Mike,
Nice.
You've raised money, you've sold companies, you've been in real estate title for quite a bit. What's your visceral reaction here?
First thing, is that I'm surprised that they're still raising the money. I think there's a lot of dry powder out there, and this seems to be a fairly hot topic. TRG, wherever they're getting their money from, has been acquiring title companies for a long time. So that roll-up strategy is there. Acrisure is doing the same thing. Acrisure, while it started in personal lines insurance, expanded into lending, and then expanded into title. And I think their numbers, 400 independent agents or something that they own, and they're looking to expand by another 300 plus, and they raised a massive war chest, 100 plus million to do that, all leading into what I heard is maybe an IPO 2 years from now. Who knows? But it seems like there's a lot of dry powder out there looking into the space. So it's going to be very interesting to see how competitive it gets. It's probably a good sign, John, for you. If you have multiple suitors coming after you, you can ask for top dollar, if you're ever willing to sell. So I think there's that level of competition that's gonna that needs to unfold to see how this thing really plays out. Can they actually make the acquisitions that will lead them to this $1 billion valuation? I don't think it's as much of a layup, considering you've got a lot of folks kind of trying to do the same things. Those are the ones I know. That's first. Second, with your guys' commentary about the data, as a data acquirer, I would love to see the local county recording process aggregated and centralized somehow, because aggregating data from all these different disparate sources, some counties do a great job of reporting data up, some counties do a lousy job of it. So the inconsistency across the country really concerns me on a daily basis, because we don't get data from TPS systems. That's not something that we're allowed to do at the moment. So we can't see what happens at the end of the transaction. And you're relying on these kind of local county operations to report that information up. So the data is woefully inconsistent across the country. And anything that we can do to make that easier to access, more centralized, more visible, I think is a positive. States' rights aside, and the politics of all this, I just think that there was just this general black hole of missing information that is useful to the industry, but the way it's aggregated and presented is not. So I think that there's definitely a challenge there. And then as it relates to AI and the technology side of things, I find it incredibly opportunistic for us, but for the industry in general, that so much of the focus on using AI and using tech is all focused on back of the house operations. It's never really being spoken about to the front of the house. So, and I think that in a title company, and John, I'd love your comments on this, is that you've got the back office operations, certain people doing certain things and making their jobs more uniform and tightening things up and centralizing things, I think is absolutely a need. And you're right, our industry is woefully behind in tech adoption. But I think that affects the title rep less. The title rep, front of the house type of stuff, that's another thing that in all of these, roll-up strategies that you read about, it's all about back of the house. It's all about operations. It's all about making the real, more involved in the real estate closing than it is about revenue growth. So I think all of this makes sense operationally and certainly leads to efficiency. And that will be one factor in reaching $1 billion plus valuation. But I think if AI and technology is not also focused on the front of the house, the stuff that brings in the revenue and revenue growth, that's the missed opportunity here. And I'm not really hearing a lot about, whether it's TRG or Acrisure or Proppy, deploying AI, deploying technology for revenue growth versus making sure that the real estate transaction is done in a more efficient, centralized way. So massive opportunity. I think it's great that people are talking about all this stuff. I just wonder, directionally where this is all going to play out, because you've got lots of competition for the same pool of, so your total addressable market of title companies you can buy, I think it's finite. Then you've got the application of technology is certainly another piece of this. And I think this story is unfolding as we speak, and I think it's going to get refined, as it moves on. But it'll be really interesting, and nothing better than competition, and nothing better than people paying attention to accelerate creativity and new ideas in our business, which I think we certainly all would agree is, where we come in. We want to see much more innovation, much more technology, much more growth, much more opportunity. I think that, bodes well.
So maybe tee up the question there for you, John, is, when he's talking about this Acrisure Rollup TRG, and when I see these acquisitions happen, it's all about efficiency in the back office. They've got tools and tech that they can apply to make a, Nova title that they purchase operate more efficiently. But, when they do make these acquisitions, we're talking about the productivity goes down, their market share dies. So I think teeing up the question is like Mike's saying, when these acquisition roll-ups happen, there's not so much incentive necessarily to keep the sales team around, to invest in growing market share. The owner might be checking out on his way out the door. If we're looking at Proppy, is one of the main things they should be focusing on with AI coming in, the front of the house, as Mike puts it?
Well, to me, there's a symbiotic relationship between the production side, the back of the house to the front of the house. So I think the main thing I would try to do if I was executing this strategy is to consolidate back offices and policies and procedures across the breadth of your acquired entities, and create systems and procedures so that just was smooth. So the exam, everything just flows. So the things that we spend time on, ordering payoffs, reaching out to customers, if you had all the best tech to automate as many of those functionalities as you can, in theory, you would free up your top people inside of each agency to then go out and communicate with the customers and use the tools that you guys offer to really push out there and expand your market share. Mm-hmm. So, because on the other end of this thing, remember, there's a customer. I mean, I've met with 2 customers today. I'm going to meet with 2 more after we do this. And so I wear my suit, and yesterday I wore a tie, because I was meeting with somebody that was important to me or to my client. I can't remember which. And I wanted to look my best, so I reflected well on the person that referred them to me. And that's what title agency owners do, and managers and salespeople do every day. And it's a very personal business. While it's still, it's numbers and so forth, it's relationship based. And so I can tell you and I've met with the people at Acrisure a while ago, just because they were saying, hey, tell me about title. What they were property and casualty guys. The guy locally just wanted to get a baseline. So I talked to him, a great guy, super smart, sold his P&C company to Acrisure, and he's just, taking the next step. And that might be a little bit different because they're getting renewal. Right, somebody has their homeowner's insurance or car insurance, they're probably going to stay there for some period of time. We come in every day, we're at 0. We got to earn that business every single day. And so unless you're partners with a big realty company. So one thing Proppy could do is go to Compass, who just bought Sotheby's and Coldwell Banker and Century 21, and say, let's create the mother of all joint ventures. Let's use our tech with your agents, and we're going to create a huge ABA. And that would hurt somebody like me who competes every day against ABAs and joint venture title companies. If I were them, I would try to, retain the talent in the agency, lock them in with some, really good program to keep them incented by money to keep them in the game, whether it's an earn out or comp or whatever, and let them focus on the things they enjoy doing, meeting with customers, making decisions. And that's the other thing. If you have a grid that says you have to do this every single time, like if I have a client and their kid is buying a house, I'm going to probably give them a break on a title exam or something, or I'm going to do my best to take care of them. But if you have a corporate entity that says these are the fees and that's just it, then you can't do that. And people might look for a smaller agency where they can talk to the owner and say, hey, can you help me with this? Can you go meet with this person directly? Can you solve this problem for me? Because that's what the realtors want. Yeah. So it's not, it's complicated, right? Buying a business and taking it over is complicated. It's not just a financial equation that if you put 7 inputs in, you're going to get double that in 12 months. It doesn't work that way.
John, it's interesting when you think some of the things you're talking about, this is where, again, I'm speaking from past experience, not anything current, but when Anywhere, Realogy, whatever they were beforehand, which is part of this TRG thing, they got the whole idea of, economies of scale. Let's buy local market leaders, let's buy the biggest brand in each market, convert it to one of our franchise brands, take over all of the back office stuff, and let the incumbents, the guys who are running it, stay in place for 3-5 years. Keep the local market presence, keep the local market flavor, save the relationships, and then everything else becomes more efficient in the back. So they were very good at that. Mm-hmm. But it's the same thing that Compass did when they got into residential brokerage. Compass is already doing this in title. They bought a bunch of companies already. So it'll be interesting if that same need to retain local market presence, local market relationships, they value that as much. I do think that is the case. It feels like nobody has lost sight of our business being a relationship business in any phase of it. I don't care if you're in the brokerage side, the title side, the lending side, or all the other kind of surrounding dependencies of a real estate transaction. It's a relationship driven thing. And I think that has got to be retained for any sort of success. When you make this, and this is where this whole nationalization does concern me, is that you get, if you make it too corporate, you're basically taking the most important financial decision most people make in their lives is buying their home or who they marry. And you're taking that decision and you're standardizing it and franchising and making it cookie cutter. It's not fast food, right? This is very, very different than that. Yeah. And you need to retain those relationships for longevity. Now, how those relationships get built and how they're nurtured and all those things, that can change, certainly from a tactical perspective, but from a strategic perspective, keeping relationships at the forefront of everything that they're doing will probably be the most important thing to guaranteeing success long term, because it does matter what those local relationships look like. And if you lose them by slapping on a big national brand on there, I think that's going to be a risk. And then to the point earlier about why wouldn't an underwriter get into this business and buy lots of local brands? I think you've got this inherent concern about competition, right? The same underwriter that is underwriting me is now competing with me. That's a problem for lots of underwriters. And then you've also got, it's a very different business. When you're out there acquiring these companies, you're taking on tons of brick and mortar. And if it's not a franchise model, all of that dumps on to the acquirer's balance sheet. Who wants that? Who wants real estate, right? Nobody wants that. Nobody wants office space and personnel and systems and legacy technologies. That's a whole messy stuff to unravel. And that, I think, is why your publicly traded national underwriters would shy away from getting into what Propy or Acrisure are doing because of the what it means to their balance sheet and putting all those assets on the balance sheet. That's a drag on earnings, and I don't think they're looking for that. And that the underwriters are kind of dividend driven, right? They just want to kind of repeat their model. They're not looking for that kind of exponential guerrilla growth. They have a very sustainable model, and I think this would be very disruptive for them to get into the acquisition business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, as we close here, just to summarize a few things. So, from a tech perspective, they're going to have a long, road to trow, using these county recorders offices, getting it, housing transaction digitized. They've already got, a lot of big money in the game, TRG, Acrisure. So they're going to have competition in that regard. And then finally, if they do, pull off these acquisitions, we've already seen it play out that not necessarily, growth happens just because you put $1 in and expect $10 out. So sure. I think that's, necessarily what I'm taking from the conversation, being the dumbest guy in the room here. So this has been the next episode of the Title Abstract. If you found it valuable, pass it on to a friend, a colleague, an underwriter, And thank you for joining the title abstract.